Have you ever been told that your dreams are useless? I have. When I was a little girl, I loved to draw. I would lose myself for hours in a world of color and shapes. But my parents told me to focus on math and reading. So I learned to hide my art, to hide my passion, to hide the brightest parts of myself. I didn't know it then, but I was practicing for the life that was to come, a life where I would learn to hide everything. Just to survive. My name is Anna, and this is the story of how I lost myself in a man's shadow, and how a simple chocolate cake became the first small act of rebellion that saved my life. I grew up in a small, quiet riverside town called Riverbend. My house was as quiet as I was. I was a shy, watchful child. My parents were very strict. My father was a teacher, and our home was a place for studying, not playing. There were no friends over, no loud games, no messy fun. Just books and rules, and a constant, heavy silence. I was so lonely when I finally started school. I was terrified. All the noise, all the children laughing and running. I didn't know how to be a part of it. I sat alone, I ate alone, until one day, a little girl with a bright, sunny smile named Emma came up to me and asked if I wanted to play. She was my first, and for a long time, my only friend. As I got older, I found a secret escape. I joined a small art club after school, telling my parents I had extra homework. It was there, in that dusty, paint-splattered room, that I met Leo. He was 17, with warm brown eyes and a smile that made me feel, for the very first time, like I was special. He'd look at my drawings and say, "You're so good at this, Anna." No one had ever said that to me before. I fell for him, fast and hard. He was my first taste of freedom, of attention, of feeling seen. We'd walk in the park after school, and I'd tell him all my dreams. I told him I wanted to go to art school. He just smiled and said, "You don't need school, Anna. We can just be together. We can be happy." I was 17. I was in love, and I believed him. I thought love was more important than anything else. So when he asked me to marry him right after graduation, I said yes. My parents were furious. They said I was too young, that I was throwing my life away. But I didn't listen. I saw Leo as my savior, my escape from my cold, quiet home. We moved to a small apartment in a nearby town. At first, it was everything I had ever dreamed of. I was finally free. I cooked, I cleaned, I made our little place a home, and I waited for my wonderful husband to come home from his job at the garage every day. A year later, our daughter, Ella, was born. I was so in love with her tiny fingers and soft black hair. I thought my life was perfect, but after Ella was born, Leo started to change. The man who had made me feel so special started to make me feel small. It was in little things at first. He'd criticize my clothes. "You don't need to dress like that anymore," he'd say. He told me to grow my hair out, to stop looking like a child. He didn't like me talking to my old friends. "You have a family now, Anna. You should be at home." So I listened. I stayed home. My world began to shrink. Then he started coming home late, his moods dark and unpredictable. One night, he came home angry about something at work, and he just started shouting at me, telling me I never did anything right. I just cried, confused and scared. I didn't know what I had done wrong. A few weeks after that, during another argument, he pushed me. I stumbled and fell against the wall. It wasn't a hard push, but the shock of it, the violation, it knocked the air out of my lungs. He was immediately sorry. He bought me flowers the next day, and he cried, and he swore it would never, ever happen again. And I, a young woman who had nowhere else to go, believed him. I even went to my parents, hoping for help, for a safe place. But my father just looked at me with cold eyes and said, "You made your bed, Anna. You're a married woman. Go home to your husband." So I went back, and I told myself things would get better. Soon after, I found out I was pregnant again. A part of me was terrified, but another, more hopeful part of me thought, maybe this will fix us. Maybe a new baby will bring back the man I married. When I told Leo, he didn't smile. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked away. Our son, Luca, was born a few months later. Leo didn't even come to the hospital. When I brought our new baby home, he barely looked at him. That was when I finally started to see the truth. He didn't want this life. He didn't want me soon after I found out about the other woman. He didn't even try to hide it. When I confronted him, he just shrugged. She understands me better, he said. The pain was so immense, I thought it might actually kill me. I wanted to leave, but how? I had no job, no money, and 2 small children. My parents had turned their backs on me. I was completely and utterly trapped out then one day. He came home and announced he was joining the Navy. I'll send money, he said. And then he was gone. The money he sent was barely enough to survive. Some months, it didn't come at all. I had to start cleaning houses, a secret, shameful job that I did while my children were at a neighbor's. Just to be able to buy groceries. I was at my lowest point, completely alone when he called months later. From some faraway place, he told me he'd made a mistake. He told me he was sorry. He told me he loved me and wanted to come home. And I, a broken, lonely woman who still remembered the boy with the kind eyes from the art club, said yes. He came back. And for a little while, things were better. But he hadn't changed. The anger, the control, the harsh words, it all came back. And I was trapped again in the same cycle of hope and heartbreak. I was 26 years old, and I'd look in the mirror and I wouldn't recognize the sad, tired woman staring back at me. The turning point wasn't a big, dramatic event. It was a knock on the door. It was my new neighbor, Sarah. She had seen me, really seen the sadness in my eyes, and she just offered me a cup of tea. That simple act of kindness from a stranger cracked open the dark, lonely world I had been living in. I started visiting her, and for the first time in years, I told someone the truth. I told her everything. One day, Sarah said to me, "You used to love drawing, didn't you? Why don't you start again?" And it was like a light went on in a room I had forgotten existed. I had loved drawing. I had loved baking. I have loved so many things before I had tried to shrink myself to fit into Leo's world. So I baked a cake. A simple chocolate cake. My daughter Ella helped me, her little face covered in flour, her laughter filling our quiet kitchen. It was the first time I had felt a spark of my old self in years. I gave a slice to Sarah, and she posted a picture of it online. And then something incredible happened. A woman messaged me and asked if she could order a cake for her son's birthday. My hands were shaking as I wrote back. Yes, that one small cake was the beginning of everything. I started baking, just a few orders here and there. I started earning my own money, a secret little stash that I hid away. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was power. It was hope. Leo hated it. He saw me finding a small piece of joy that wasn't connected to him, and he tried to crush it. "You don't need to work," he'd yell. "I take care of this family." But this time, I didn't back down. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I am doing this for me. I'm not stopping." He was shocked into silence. And in that moment, I felt a strength I never knew I had. I started to set boundaries. I cut my hair the way I liked it. I wore the clothes I wanted to wear. I started to reclaim myself piece by piece, and I kept baking. My little home business grew. I took a free class at the library on how to run a small business. I designed a logo. I was building something all on my own. Leo was still there, a sullen, angry presence in our home. But he didn't have the same power over me anymore. I was no longer the scared, helpless girl he had married. I was a mother, I was a baker, and I was a woman who was finally finding her own voice. I don't know what the future holds for me in Leo, but I know that I will never again let anyone tell me that my dreams are useless. My dreams, my cakes, my art, they are the things that saved me. They are the things that brought me back to life.